ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new reaction and review. Tonight, guys, we're checking out a Japanese animated film from 1985. That movie is Angel's Egg. Now, I've heard about this movie, but I haven't heard much. I have had a few people mention it to me in messages, and no one's really been willing to give me a whole lot of detail about it, which really kind of fascinated me enough to actually try to find a copy. I have tried to find as few details as I possibly can about this movie. What I have picked up is it has something to do with a woman who's trying to survive in some kind of an abandoned building while caring for an egg. That's it. I know nothing else about this movie outside of the fact that it was made by the same guy who worked on the Ghost in the Shell movie. And Ghost in the Shell is a classic. I love that movie. So I kind of have expectations of it being that well made, at least in terms of like animation and all of that. I have no idea about the story outside of the barest basics, and even that's leaving me kind of puzzled as to what I'm exactly getting into. I know that the thing is short. It's only about an hour and 11 minutes long. So I'm curious exactly what they are going to, fit into an hour and an hour and 11 minutes. I have no idea. I'm certainly hoping for this to be an entertaining movie, but I have no idea. The only way I'm going to find out, guys, is if I shut up and I push play. And I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Angel's Egg. Well, I can say this much, guys. I can say two things about this movie so far. One, visually, it's absolutely gorgeous. This is one of the most beautiful movies I've seen come out of Japan from the 1980s. This thing is absolutely breathtaking to see. But minor problem so far is that the pacing is apocalyptically slow. The movie's been going for about 13 minutes. There's been about 3 minutes of anything I could even vaguely consider a story. That's kind of a problem. I'm certainly hoping that it picks up its pace a little bit. We actually get into a proper story or like a proper narrative of some kind. But so far, I can certainly say that it's beautiful to watch, but unfortunately, there's just not a whole lot going on right now. Okay, that scene was a little bit weird. We had a whole bunch of guys show up with what looked to be harpoons. They're trying to harpoon shadows of gigantic fish. I don't know what that means. There's probably some kind of a symbolic meaning behind it. I'm completely and totally lost on that. It was certainly cool looking, but then again, everything in this movie is cool looking and gorgeous. But I couldn't make heads or tails of any of that, guys. Feels kind of weird, guys. Normally, when a movie has almost no logical sense to it like this, I can't stand it, and it feels like a chore to watch. For some reason, I am completely immersed into this movie. I'm completely sucked in. I'm really, really enjoying it. The movie is almost over. I'm certainly hoping that there's some answers to the mountain of questions I have about this thing by the time it's done. But so far, even though it seems to border on plotless, it is very fascinating to watch, and that's certainly cool. Well, guys, that was Angel's Egg, and thankfully the YouTube video I watched just cuts off as soon as the movie ends, so I don't have to shut off anything. Wow, how to even go into this one? Alright, it's really weird, guys. I'm so used to doing reaction and review, and I can start with friggin' writing. But writing is like the hardest part of this movie to actually try to discuss. Allow me to attempt to explain. You see, this movie is ridiculously. It is ridiculously. It's very, very interpretive in nature. What I mean by that is, you could show this movie to 50 people, and you're going to get 50 different interpretations of what they just saw. They all watched the same 71 minutes of movie, but you're going to get 50 different meanings behind it. Because some people are going to go into this thing and they're going to see 71 minutes of almost plotless nothingness, and they're going to hate every second of it. Other people are going to see it as this deep, deep, symbolic film about faith. Whether it be a positive or a negative thing is going to vary from person to person. Other people are going to look at it and they're probably going to see something involving like pregnancy of some kind. Again, either positive or negative. Other people are going to see a mix of those two. Other people are probably going to find something completely out of left field, and every one of those people are going to have things that they saw which set off those meanings. They are going to look at the constant focus on water and the shadow fish and the very, very quick like Noah's Ark rundown that happens at one point where one of the characters essentially explains Noah's Ark. You know, and they are going to look at all of that, and they're going to find different meanings behind all of it. Just as a story, this movie is pretty bad. I'm not talking about the fact that you can take and you're able to interpret what you see in so many different ways. That honestly is really fascinating. But if you're just going into this thing and you're just looking for a fun and simple story, that is not here. Part of that has to do with the pacing. And normally, guys, when a movie has slow pacing, I will drag that movie across the coals for it. The problem here is that the pacing, as slow as it is part of this movie's charm. You see, one thing that makes this movie stand out is just the absolute gorgeous look of everything, every character, every building, every structure, every setting, everything looks beautiful. And they show this off with a ton of incredibly long shots of trees or buildings or water, and all of it looks great. And if you were to cut almost any of it, it would horribly ruin the overall artistic beauty of this movie. However, though, because this movie wants to focus on its art and its setting and its background and all the beautiful shit that you see, what little story is here in the first place suffers greatly, because there are long gaps where nothing happens except you're looking at this and you are attempting to interpret what you are seeing and trying to cobble a story out of it. So what is here in terms of dialogue and actual character build-up is very, very fleeting. In fact, if you were to cut all of the long hanging shots and all of the long pans and the just really long running shots, this movie would probably be about 30 minutes. And if you do not believe me, there actually is a video on YouTube. I found it while I was trying to find a suitable copy I could watch for this series. And it claims to cut all of those long shots, and it clocks in at 46 minutes. After watching this thing, you could probably cut an additional 15 minutes out of there, and it would not heavily impact what little story is being told up front here. What we do have as a story, without diving into like symbolism and meaning, is it seems to be a post-apocalypse of some kind, because there's almost nobody in this movie outside of the pikemen who are throwing harpoons at shadowfish and our two main characters. One of them is a little girl. I cannot tell how old she is. And she's carrying this egg with her everywhere. She runs into this guy, this total stranger. Mind you, neither character is ever named at any point in this movie. So I can't even reference them by name outside of he and she, or man and woman. So the man, the guy, he really doesn't seem to have a whole lot of purpose. He wants to know what's inside of that egg. She wants the egg to hatch. She's trying to care for it until it hopefully eventually hatches. And there's almost no real dialogue between them, except the guy is now following her constantly. And eventually, well, I could probably go into the rest of it, but I really don't want to spoil what little direct upfront story is here. But you could tell everything that is here in direct upfront story in probably about 30 minutes, if not possibly less. It's everything else which kind of sort of swirls around these two characters, which gives you the opportunity to actually essentially cobble a story together in your head and attempt to interpret it your own way, which is really cool. The problem with that is that, once more, you could ask 50 people, shit, you could ask 100 people about this thing. If 100 people have seen it, you could find 100 people who've seen it, you could ask all of them, and you're gonna get 100 different interpretations of this movie, because every scene, every prop, every character, every feather and drop of water you see could easily be interpreted one of dozens of different ways in order to fit each person's personal view of the movie. Essentially, this movie is a 72-minute Rorschach test, and that's cool. Okay, I mean, it certainly is not a powerful movie in terms of story. And once more, I'm talking about upfront as told story. But the fact that everybody is able to get something different out of it makes it an incredibly fascinating movie. I've never seen a movie which does that. I've never seen a movie which actually is able to tell a rather thin story and they're able to slap enough shit close to it where people are able to take that bit of story and translate it into so many different ways. As I was watching it, I was finding 5, 6, 7 different meanings for almost everything. And there's no way in hell I could pick just one and say that is my true belief on this film. Because then there are other things which question it or could possibly alter it, and that's awesome. So guys, in terms of writing, if you're just basically looking for a mindless, brainless film that you can just shut off your brain and just have fun with, this is not the movie for you. If you want something that is going to test you a little bit and is going to make you actually ponder everything that you are seeing, it's fantastic for that. So yeah, writing, I really, guys, cannot really give you a verdict on writing as I normally do, because there are so many variables here in terms of what is seen and what is said and how all of it can be how all of it can be translated in various ways. Going back onto pacing, though, there is one shot I'm going to comment on. It seemed so unnecessary and so pointless, and I hated the fuck out of it. There is one shot where our two main characters are just sitting in this darkened room. She is lying on what looks to be a stone slab, using it as a bed, and she's cuddling up with the egg in order to keep it warm. He is seated on the floor in front of this stone slab. There is a campfire off to one side. The only thing that's moving in this shot is the flames in the campfire, and they stick on that shot for 3 fucking minutes. There is no reason for it to stay on that shot for 3 minutes. There's nothing happening. There is nothing going on. The only thing which happens is, at least on the copy that I watched, the shot slowly fades in and slowly fades out, and it does that. It basically pulsates exactly how much you can see. It actually looks like it's going to fade out, then it stops, and it's like, oops, gotcha, and then it fades back in. Does that shit for 3 minutes until the fire fucking dies out, and then apparently that's everybody's cue to move again. It was that shot that drove me insane, because it serves no purpose but to pad this movie out. Almost every other shot, guys, I had no problem with. That one shot, fuck that shot, okay? That is probably the most negative you are going to hear me go about this movie. That 3-minute fucking shot can die in a fire. It had no purpose. It was awful. Everything else here, in terms of pacing, I can totally let slide once more because of the sheer interpretive nature of everything. So I got to go off on that one shot. I really had to, because god damn it, it bothered the fuck out of me. Okay, so I really can't talk about writing the way that I normally do, and I probably talk more about writing here than I have in any other episode, just because there's so much to really talk about, while there's almost nothing of substance in the film. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about acting. This movie lives off of almost zero dialogue. There's probably, and I am not even kidding here, there is less than 5 minutes of spoken dialogue across this entire film, which sort of helps strengthen the whole everything is able to be interpreted in different ways argument, because there is almost no real attempt at setting up anything. The longest stretch of dialogue is when the guy starts rattling off the story of Noah's Ark, essentially kind of sort of implying that the constant rain could very well be another coming of God saying fuck it and flooding everything. But that honestly is never 100% cashed in on, and the rain could mean something else once more. Whatever in the hell you want the rain to mean, that's what the fucking rain means. Anyway, but what is here for dialogue in terms of acting is, for the most part, done incredibly well. There were a couple of lines which kind of seemed a little bit, iffy, but that's fine. Everything else works in terms of acting. What little is here for acting, it works, and it works incredibly well. I kind of touched on animation a little bit, but you guys do not understand how fucking beautiful this movie is. This thing is a moving masterpiece of art. When our main character, when this kid with the egg is running through alleys, or when the wind catches her hair, it looks almost as if they animated every single hair on her head, and it looks amazing. Every single movement of hair or movement of cloth, it's all there, and it's done so well. This is one of the finest looking hand-drawn animated films I have ever seen. And as much, guys, as I could talk about how there's almost nothing here directly in terms of writing, it totally makes up for it by having some of the most beautiful visuals you will ever get the chance to see. This movie, guys, is 71 minutes long, 71, 72, depending. And every second of it, minus that 3 minute borderline still shot involving a campfire, everything else is beautiful. Everything else looks awesome. There are mountains of detail in every single shot. Guys, I talked about the guys with the pikes who were trying to spear shadow fish. These aren't just simple fucking harpoons. There's tons of rope and cable coming off of every one of those harpoons. Our male lead has this crucifix-shaped weapon, which has so much fucking detail on it, and you will notice something different every time you see it in shot. And it's not because they're changing how it looks. It's because you're getting more time to focus on it. There is so much detail here. It is beautiful. I could probably watch this thing another 5 times and still notice new shit every single time. That is how much detail is in every shot of this movie. It is absolutely beautiful. The one thing that could possibly be even better is the music. The music in this movie is masterfully done. It is amazing to listen to. It borders on the great pieces of classical music that have been here for centuries. This is beautiful music to listen to. Sound mix is a little bit of an issue. I actually had to adjust my volume multiple times because early on we see this giant orb which has stone statues on it, and it has some steam like whistles on it. That steam whistle is at least 3 times louder than everything else in this fucking movie. So I had to lower my volume, and it was still too freaking loud. I guys got a headache off of that, and that happened within the first couple of minutes. My head is still throbbing. That is how loud it frickin' was. And I don't have the volume on my fucking laptop up that high. That should tell you how piercingly loud that sound was. And that was probably intentional. But, oh my god, as soon as I'm done filming, I'm gonna go grab some fucking aspirin and try to, try to stop this from throbbing so badly. Anyway, beyond that one sound effect, our sound mix here is amazing. Guys, when all is said and done, I'm able to recommend Angel's Egg. Yes. Absolutely yes. You can find numerous copies of it on friggin' YouTube. Almost all of them are subtitled. I will say that the version that I watched, the subs are a little bit, iffy because I was seeing typos and spelling errors, and there were moments where the sentence seemed to be almost made up of friggin' gibberish because the person didn't know how to actually type it. But that's fine. That was maybe one friggin' line of subtitle out of everything else. It was still functional. You can probably find copies which have better subs. You can find the version that cuts out all of the potential padding of the thing, and it whittles it down to 46 minutes. If you totally want to watch this thing, there are plenty of options to watch it. There are plenty of ways you can watch it with subtitles of varying quality or with all of the long shots cut. And that's fine. I highly recommend you go out and you try to find this thing, because it really is something else. It's totally different. It seriously is not something I am going to watch the way I watch every other movie I have recommended. This thing, guys, is far less watching a movie for a fascinating story, and it's more or less watching a 71-minute piece of moving art, and it's fantastic. Please, guys, go on out there, check it out. I mentioned earlier that the person who worked on this, who wrote it and directed it, also made Ghost in the Shell, and I haven't watched Ghost in the Shell in probably about a decade, and I've got a Blu-ray of it sitting right there. I'm going to go and throw it in, because it's been a long time since I watched it, and god damn it, that is a great movie. Anyway, guys, with that, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.